Okay, hello. So, today, what I'll be covering is sense of importance. So, just to do a really quick recap of what I covered previously. On the previous video, I touched on the basis of human influence and how human influence there's different aspects and different skills that you can actually learn in order for you to be perceived to be more likable. I think I also touched on very briefly about the difference between power and influence and why you want to utilize influence, and the whole idea of the technique if you want to be charismatic is that you want to go through the direction of likability compared to going through the direction of power, because likability works on the principle that the more that people like us, the more they're willing to do things for us. So to me, the most efficient techniques when it comes to human influence, as far as influence goes on the part of positive emotion instead of negative emotions, is mirroring and sense of importance. And I'll go even as far to say that so long as you start utilizing basic mirroring, just mirroring of words alone, and sense of importance, it will encompasses about 70 to 80% of the charisma process. So previously I talked about mirroring and how human process information in a conversation. And today I'll be touching on the second part, which is sense of importance. So sense of importance is actually very easy to understand intuitively. Although I'll be sharing a little bit more on how things actually is and why do human being do the things that we do when it comes to seeking sense of importance, and ideally what you should do as far as how to utilize sense of importance, right? Because just like mirroring, we are tempering our expectation. Instead of paraphrasing, we are actually trying to cut out that part of internal process to actually try to process the person's word and give it back to them. Of course, even if you want to paraphrase, it's perfectly fine, but the whole idea is that you need to understand that it's more efficient to just give their words back to them, right? And the charismatic process, the hypnotic type of conversation, it's best when you use their own words because you bypass their conscious mind to a certain extent. So when it comes to sense of importance, the same principle also applies. You are trying to cut down your own personal need for sense of importance. So in any case, let's just go straight to sense of importance, right? So to me, whenever a human being opens their mouth for longer than 5 seconds, I think that they have already started to look for a sense of importance. Because anything that you can say that is straightforward, that is just purely factual, with no emotional charge to it, more or less can be settled within 5 seconds. So for example, if let's say I would ask you what's the time right now, and then you look at the time, then okay, now is 10 p.m. They're like, okay, good, right? You can say that in that conversation there is no emotions, there is no trying to impress the other person. But what if instead of just saying that now it's 10 p.m., I tell you that, oh, now it's 10 p.m. In this time zone, in this particular place, it's actually this time. In US right now the timing will be this. If we're in Europe, the timing will be this. If we're in Japan, the timing will be this. So if you were to think about this, right, why is it that this person started telling me about all the different time zones? Of course, you can conclude that this person is crazy, number one, or this person is show off. But the whole idea is that this person, if you actually try to analyze and think about the reason of why this person is saying all this thing, is because this person is trying to impress you, right? Which goes back to this person is trying to get the sense of importance from you. So, going to sense of importance. Sense of importance. In our conversation, because most conversation that you have, if you were to have a random conversation with your colleague whatsoever tomorrow, this sense of importance will come into play. Because again, so long as somebody opens their mouth for longer than 5 seconds, they are already going for a sense of importance. So for human beings, we seek sense of importance in two different ways. One is through validation, and the other is through sympathy. So before I actually go into more details of what these two particular terms encompass, I want you to think in terms of this way. A lot of what influence a human being to act was imprinted in us when we are a little kid, or toddler, or baby to a certain extent. So if let's say we just think in terms of like, let's say right now, this is a baby, right? How is a baby, or maybe it's easier to say that this person is a toddler. Maybe a toddler. I know that this looks like a pig, right? You know, it's not a pig, it's a baby. Alright. So how is a toddler? It's not a baby. It's a toddler. Okay, so how is a toddler able to get the sense of importance from the adults of the world, right? The environment around them. They can either do something that is impressive. So let's say they drew a impressive drawing. Okay, and then they show the drawing to their hey, look what I drew. And then what is the results, right? Most parents who are, let's say, healthy parents are likely going to look at it and then give a certain amount of validation to the baby, right? Oh, you're so talented, the picture is so pretty, wow, what a smart boy, oh, good job, and everything like this. And this is one method. And the other method is, of course, to cry. To cry, they're like, you know, that's what baby do, right? They cry, or maybe they throw a tantrum, and the whole idea is that at the end of the day, what we are trying to get is that we are trying to get attention. Because again, if you were to remember, in the previous video, I touched on attention, right? To a certain extent, human beings, we are willing to actually pay resources, such as money, to get attention. So attention to us is actually worth us spending resources. It's not something that is negligible to a human being. So going back to sense of importance, now that we know that, okay, sense of importance actually stems from early childhood, what exactly is validation? Validation is, in some sense, I'm trying to get a sense of importance by being impressive. So maybe I will say like my achievements. My achievements can be here. My job can be here to a certain extent. Okay, if you have an impressive job, if let's say like you're an international super spy, you know, then like you will say that, oh yeah, my job is, of course you won't be able to tell the other person, because telling the other person your job is to be a spy is counterproductive. But the whole idea is that, yeah, if you have an impressive job, for example, if like I'm an investment banker, I earn 10,000 a month. This is something that you'll notice that, okay, imagine if two person were to go on a date. This is something that like probably the investment banker would share with the other party, right? It's gonna be like, you know, hey, what is it that you do? And then like when it's his turn, like, oh, I'm impressed, I'm an investment banker, I earn 10,000 a month, and all these things. Then he'll go on about all his achievement, all his job, and basically everything. The whole idea about sense of validation is that I'm trying to impress you. And for me, I like to share sense of importance and validation and sympathy through stories, because it's easier for me to actually show in an actual conversation what is it like when, how to notice validation or sense of importance, right? Because the whole idea of learning sense of importance is that you are trying to notice when it happens and give the appropriate response. So one example that I like to give when it comes to validation could be the idea of coming back from a vacation. So imagine, let's say right now you have a conversation with your colleague, and your colleague come up to you and like, hey, you just came back from a trip, how was your trip? So for me, if I'm trying to get the feeling of validation, right, I'll be, oh, the trip was awesome, man. I went on a cruise trip, and then the cruise was so good. It's affordable, but the food is so great. The environment is so good. The facility is so good. I had such a wonderful time. I managed to relax and unwind. I read books. You know, I went to this particular port, and I went to do this and all these other things, right? And the whole idea that I'm telling the story, you can say that the whole idea that I want is that I want you to think that I'm impressive because I managed to go on a cruise trip. Simple as this. It's not going to be like, no, I'm just sharing information for the sake of sharing. Human beings don't really share information for the sake of sharing, right? We share information for a particular reason. And you can say that to a certain extent, think to the last time that you actually managed to share your vacation story. How do you actually feel after you have shared about it at length? Or anything for that matter, right? If you have spoken to a friend for maybe something that happened to you, something in-game or like hobbies, your theories on Korean drama or whatsoever, your views and opinion, right? After sharing all of those with your friends or whoever you're talking to, how did you actually feel? You actually feel positive emotion. So the whole idea is that the validation, you're trying to get positive emotion through impressing the other person. So this is number one. Now, number two is sympathy. So sympathy is categorized by the type of conversation such as this. If let's say somebody would ask you, your colleague again, like, you know, hey Ilong, I didn't see you at work for like 2 days. Like, how have you been, man? Then I'll be like, oh, it's actually terrible, man. I was actually down with COVID and it's so tough, you know. I was bedridden. I have my fever is such a high degree. It's like, you know, 39 degrees and etc. And I can't feel, and like I felt completely weak, and it's just such a horrible experience for me, man. So when I'm telling this type of story, what I'm actually looking for is sympathy. I'm trying to gather the sense of importance through sympathy. And to a certain extent, you can say that sympathy, the whole idea is why is it that somebody tries to get their sense of importance through sympathy? Is also partially because sympathy, in some sense, that I'm trying to impress you by telling you how resilient I am and how much hardship I can endure. So the whole idea is that whether I'm talking about like validation or I'm talking about sympathy, is you're trying to impress the person. You're trying to make the other person feel like, wow, this person is so impressive. You know, it's either through like, wow, I can't believe this person endured so much hardship, or wow, this person is able to achieve so much things. So this is your sense of importance and your validation. Here's the thing. When it comes to validation and sympathy, like what I mentioned, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is that you're trying to recognize what is it that this person wants. I promise you, tomorrow when you have a conversation with somebody, you are more or less going to run into either validation or sympathy, because anything that doesn't involve validation and sympathy, right, it's not worth talking for more than 5 seconds. If somebody is looking for validation, so for example, your colleague just got a new watch. Maybe this person just got a Rolex, right? And then he's trying to show, like, you know, hey dude, you know, check out my new watch, man. And then he's gonna talk about, oh wow, it has this feature, you have this feature, and then like it's so good, wow, the price is so expensive, and then it costs how much percentage of his monthly salary to buy this watch, but how much he actually like this watch and everything like this. You can say that intuitively some of us will actually think like, oh, what a show off. What a shallow person, right? To think that happiness is bought just by having a Rolex. You know, this person is just trying to show off, man. But the whole idea is that if you think about what is the best case scenario in this person's head, the best case scenario in this person's head technically is you going, wow, wait, that's your new watch? That's so cool. And like, what's the feature? Wow, how much do you buy it for? $10,000? Wow, $10,000 is so much. Wow, you're so rich, you're so amazing. That's essentially what this person wants to hear, right? And the thing is, you can say that inversely, of course, whenever this happens, we are going to have the opposite asshole, which is going to be like, hey, that's a really nice watch. 10,000 Rolex, you say? That's kind of similar to my 20,000 Rolex. And my 20,000 Rolex have this feature, this feature, this feature, this feature. Why is the second person saying this? You can conclude to say that, like, well, the reason why the second person is saying this is because he's a show off, he's shallow, or like he's an asshole. That's why he's trying to one up us. Because for human beings, the weakness about human beings is that we take everything personally. One of the things that we have to realize is that to stop taking things so personally, once you realize the flaws of the human emotion, the human animals, right? So the whole idea is that the reason why this person is saying this is it comes back to one thing. This person is also looking for the validation. He's also looking for a sense of importance in the conversation. He probably is not even consciously aware that he's being an asshole. But the whole idea is he thought that like this is a normal thing to do because again he's looking for validation. So of course I'll go more into details of like how people actually screw up validation and sympathy later on, right? But for now you can say that the best case scenario when it comes to when we are seeking for validation is for people to give us the actual validation. They're like, wow, you're so impressive. They're like, whoa, you're able to like write a report in like 45 minutes? Wait, that's so cool, man, that's so amazing. Or like oh, you play 3 musical instruments. Wow, you're so talented, you're able to do all this, it's so impressive. If somebody is trying to show off certain things to you, then best case scenario what they actually want is of course that type of reaction. So if let's say that's the case, then what is the case when it comes to if somebody is looking for sympathy, right? Then you can say that if somebody is telling you that sob story about the how they just recovered from COVID, what they basically want to hear is something along the line of, oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh, that must be so hard for you. Wow, I can't believe like how much you have to endure. Wow, you're so impressive, man, actually, like so I don't think people are able to endure it to the level that you're able to endure. And even if you're talking in terms of like, let's say not COVID, right, we can say in terms of if let's say your friend is sharing about the how maybe another person mistreat them, be it maybe their relationship, right? So maybe their significant other mistreat them in this way, or it could be something such as like a colleague, a boss, like a boss were to treat them unfairly or something like this. You can also say that what they're basically looking for is not solution to say that like, hey, you should go report the boss and everything. No, comes down to one thing. They are sharing about all these things because they're looking for sympathy. All they want to hear from you is that like, wow, that's so unfair. I can't believe this person did this. It's so unfair, you have been wrong, you have been treated unfairly, right? They at the end of the day what they want to do is that they just want you to feel a certain amount of sympathy for them because they want to get a sense of importance. So now that you know that, okay, for human beings at the end of the day what we're looking for is sense of importance and we get it through validation or sympathy, why is it that this whole topic is worth a lesson all in itself? Now, the issue where human beings by nature screw this up is because of one thing. For us, it's quite easy for us to understand, and hopefully up till now, it's quite easy to understand the difference between validation, sympathy, and the whole idea of sense of importance and why people do it, right? Now, the reason why it's easy is because we're only looking at it from one dimensional, which is one person speaking. Most of the time, when it's a conversation, there is two people. And the problem arises when both of them is trying to get sense of importance from the other person. And to a certain extent, you can say that it would lead to some potential problem, of course. But the idea is that both of them is trying to fight to be the main character of the conversation, right? Oh, this conversation is about me. I'm going to share about this. So, because two person is trying to fight to be the main character, it leads to one phenomenon that I like to call conversational blue balling. Conversational blue balling. Now, what is conversational blue balling? I'll go as far to say that every single person in the world have experienced this at least once in their life. And the experience of this is always crappy. So let me just give you the example using the cruise story again, right? So let's say now I'm having a conversation with, let's just not use blue. I'm having a conversation with my colleague. My colleague asked me, hey, you just came back from the cruise trip, how was it? And I said, wow, the cruise trip was great, man. I went to this location. Keep in mind, like the cruise trip probably is like 4 days worth, right? So I basically have like 4 days worth of content to share with this person. I'll probably want to share about how good the food was. I had steak. I had creme brulee, you know, and then I have like escargot, and I did gymming. I ran on the deck. I went to the nightlife. I went to the casino. There's like so many different things that I want to share, right? Then of course, like eventually that is the content for the first 30 minutes of the conversation. And then like, you know, for 30 to 1 hour, what I want to share is that like I went to this particular port, and then in this port, right, you know, I met this amazing girl, and then she's a local. I met her for the first time, but somehow we just like bond very, very quickly. Then we have like a day date where we went to this cafe, and then we chat up, and then like she likes all these things, and it turns out that I feel like she kind of like me and everything like this. I want to share about all these stories, right? And again, why do I want to share all these stories? Because I'm looking for validation. I want this person to feel like, wow, this person just had the grand adventure, right? He's such an amazing, such a cool person. So, of course, this person, now my friend asked me, or like my colleague whatsoever, asked me, how was your trip? And then I just started to share my story, you know, going with that plan, right? Which is like 30 minutes, I'm going to talk about all the different things. And then the last 30 minutes is like, you know, my emotional journey with the local girl. So, I'm starting to share about like, you know, oh, I went on this trip. It's so great. The food is awesome. The facility is so nice. The facility is so clean. And this is like 5 minutes in. And then this person chimes in there like, you know, yeah, the facility is very clean. It reminds me of the time that I went on another cruise trip, right? With this cruise liner. And then like the food is so great. And then the facility is so good, and I did this in the thing, right? So now this person is just going on and on, and he's just starting to talk about like his whole cruise story, right? But again, okay, it depends on your personality. If you tend to be a little bit more agreeable, okay, likelihood you're going to be like, oh, yeah. You're sitting there looking at this person, okay, waiting for them to finish their point. Why? Because you want to go back to your awesome cruise story. Right, you know, your awesome cruise story of like 1 hour's worth of content, right? So, but then the thing is that this person has been talking constantly for. When this person is running their mouth, the only thing that is in your mind, you're actually not paying attention to their cruise story, right? They're sharing about their casino trip and everything, like, you know, you don't care. You don't care. The only thing in your head is you are hoping that this person will shut their mouth, okay, to shut their mouth so that they can stop talking, so that you can continue to share your awesome cruise story. And to a certain extent, you can say that like, I can't believe this person is being so freaking selfish that he is constantly talking and he's not shutting his mouth so that I can share about my awesome cruise story. So maybe in this conversation you can say that it can go many different ways, right? Based on your personal experience. If you were to think back when this happened to you, it can either go, well, at some point you chime in to say that yeah, okay, so going back to like what I was saying, right, you know, I went to this thing, you try to like fight for the control, and then this person will probably at some point try to fight the control back, right? And they're like, yeah, I also went to like, you know, that local port and everything, and then I did this. So it's as if like two monkeys is trying to fight for the steering wheel of the boat, right? You're trying to wrestle with each other, trying to steer the boat. Or if let's say you're agreeable, you just end up like feeling silent, and this person end up talking for 30 minutes to 1 hour. Now that is not important of like how the whole thing actually went down. The important thing at the end of the day is, how did it feel for you? When you think back to that thing that happened to you, do you feel as though that like, wow, I had such a fulfilling conversation with this person? Or do you leave that conversation thinking that like, you know, wow, like that person was an asshole? You felt like you felt a certain amount of dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction. Okay, you felt a certain amount of dissatisfaction. Or you felt like, you know, okay, you weren't respected. That you weren't respected. And you can even say that you felt like ignored. And all of these, you can say that to a certain extent can be lumped to negative emotion. Which leads to what? Leads to resentment. you probably about you liking the other person less. So the whole idea is, well, you can say that the other person probably didn't have the same experience as you. Maybe in the example of both of you trying to fight for the steering wheel, yeah, the feeling is mutual, right? That I like you less and then you like me less. But if the other person managed to talk all the while and you didn't really like share anything, then you can say that the other person actually feel like the conversation went really, really well. So if we know that conversational blue balling is an issue, then how do we circumvent everything in a conversation? Well, I'm about to show you. But before that, I'm gonna just add on one additional point. Conversational blue balling get exponentially worse the more number of participants there are in a conversation. Because let's say this is just 2%, right? So what we're basically doing is just conversationally blue balling each other. But if let's say you have like multiple people, okay, you can say that one person starts sharing their story and then this person starts to conversational blue ball this person. So now this person is trying to wait for this person to finish his point so that he can like come in for the story, right? But end up what happening is that this person get conversational blue balled by the third person, and now this third person is talking. So this person is waiting for this person to finish while this person is waiting for this person to finish. So it gets exponentially worse. What if you are actually interested in what this person is actually talking about? You actually want to know about a cruise trip because you're about to go on the cruise trip. That one is a whole different matter altogether. You can say that to a certain extent that's similar to the situation of if let's say a guy is infatuated with a girl. If a guy is infatuated with a girl, the guy is willing to sit there and then like listen to every single part of the story of the girl, right? The girl can be like, this thing happened to me. I can't believe like, this girl did this thing. Do you know that like this girl's boyfriend cheated on her, and then like, this girl in actual fact actually like another guy, and then share about all these other things. And they're like, I actually went this on the weekend. And like, I went to do this. I went ice skating and all the other things, right? A guy will be very happy to listen to this, but of course, you can say that if that is a guy actually does this, right, he actually have a very decent chance to get together with the girl. The issue arises when it comes to most guys chasing girls, is that most guys, we think that to impress a girl, what we do is that we just talk about achievements, right? Because again, sense of importance, right? I'm trying to validate myself. I'm trying to think, hey, I'm this. Most of the time, the thing that I forgot to mention when it comes to validation, your sense of importance, right, is that here's the thing about your particular sense of importance. No one cares about your sense of importance. No one cares about the thing that you think is impressive. No one cares about your Rolex watch. Okay, when it comes down to your career, your investment banker, no one cares the fact that you're an investment banker. I'll even go as far to say that when you say that like, I achieved this, I got this medal, I got this award, is equivalent to you going up to another person and say that like, hey, I'm rank 1 in this particular video game. And you can say that the only way for this person to appreciate that is that if that person plays a video game. But because for human beings, we are so diverse. Right? You can say that for example, if let's say you are somebody who is in the academics and you say that like, wow, I got a PhD, I had to do hours of research and do something like that. To somebody who doesn't value education, like you can say all the thing about your PhD, right? You think the other person cares? No, the person doesn't care, right? You shared about like your COVID, wow, it was so painful for you, like thinking that everybody in the world will give you like that sympathy, like, oh no, boo-hoo, oh, you're so pitiful. Realistically, people don't care because people have their own problems in their life. The whole idea is that your sense of importance is not really that important to the other party. Not to say that it's not important, because it is important to you, but it's not important to the other party. So similar to the example of the guy who's trying to impress a girl by sharing about like how impressive he is. I got this award, I got this, I'm this. Most of the time, it doesn't work. The only thing that will work is this framework, which is what I'm gonna touch upon. So that was actually a very, very long detour. Okay, so now we know that the problem is that in a conversation, two person is trying to fight for sense of importance. How do you make this conversation efficient? How do you fix this fundamental problem or equation when it comes to a human interaction. It's very simple. Let me ask you this question. What is the results of getting sense of importance? The only thing that you get out of sense of importance is warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart. Right? Similar to the story of like, if let's say somebody managed to listen to your whole cruise story for like 1 hour, what do you actually get out of it? Do you get money? No, you didn't get any money. You didn't get any resources. All you get was like a fuzzy feeling in your heart of being heard and being understood. Conversely, because you can say there's one important principle that you have to remember, and the reason the whole idea of sense of importance actually wraps around this one principle that you have to remember is that the longer the other person talks, the more they like you. Okay, if you don't take away anything from today, take away only this one point. The longer that the other person talks, the more that they like you. If you want to impress the other person, you don't talk their ears off for 30 minutes about all your achievement. It's meaningless. It's meaningless. You think that they'll have the same emotional attachment and the value system that you think is important? You achieving rank 1 in one game has zero emotional impact to somebody else. They're gonna be like, so what? It's just a game. Because they don't share your value system. You can say that hypothetically, yes, there's probably, if let's say you are a guy trying to impress a girl, which by the way, why are you actually using the fact that you're rank 1 in the video game to actually try to impress a girl? Is actually a very flawed strategy. But assuming that she is in itself a gamer, she herself is a gamer, then playing the same game, then you can say that maybe she'll appreciate that. But probably she wouldn't appreciate it to the same level as you, because again, it's not her achievement, it is your achievement, right? So the idea is that the longer that the person talk, the more that they like you. All you need to do is that you want to impress the person, let the other person talk. Let the other person be the one that talks for 30 minutes to 1 hour, right? Because at the end of the day, you can say this: if I try to fight for the sense of importance with the other person, I'm the monkey trying to wrestle the steering wheel from the other person. What do I get out of the at the end of the day if I were to win? If I were to win and I manage to talk for the majority of the conversation, all I get is warm fuzzy feeling inside. So if let's say we go back to a previous lesson, you know, again with the color, right? All I get is warm fuzzy feeling inside. I can get nothing out of it. You can say that to a certain extent, for me to get this warm fuzzy feeling, the girl or the other person that I'm talking to, maybe because this is a ponytail, you know, that's why I see this as a girl, that she has to lose a certain amount of emotional satisfaction because she wasn't able to share her thing. So you can say that, funnily enough, this seems like a zero-sum game. Only one person can win. But the idea is that once you realize that actually this warm fuzzy feeling is in itself meaningless because you can't do anything with it, just let the other person have all the sense of importance in the conversation. It's so simple. What do you get out of it when you give other people a sense of importance? The longer they talk, the more they like you. They, by nature of liking you, goes back to what I covered in the first video, which is mirroring. People are willing to do good things to people that they like. When we like a certain people, we see them to a certain extent to be an extension of ourselves, up to a certain degree. We might not empty our bank account for them, right? If let's say hypothetically, right, they get a medical condition, we are not likely to empty our own bank account to save them unless we really, really like them. For example, family members, even like, you know, a friend, you're gonna be like, hey, I'm so sorry to hear that, you know, it's such a shame that I won't get to see you because you're terminally ill, but I'm not gonna empty my bank account to save you. It's not cruel, it's just logical. But the whole idea is that if they really end up liking you, is that be it like romantically or just respect or just what's the term, like charismatic, right? They just feel like you're very charismatic. They're likely to want to do nice things for you. Simple things such as like buy you cup of coffees and these like small little things that you can say that to a certain extent there is a quantifiable resource that you can get for people liking you. So by trading something worthless, which is sense of importance, that you don't need, you potentially get a currency. So if let's say this person, I need a female name. Let's say Tracy, for example, right? For me exchanging sense of importance by giving all the sense of importance to Tracy, what I basically get is a imaginary currency of Tracy dollars, which can potentially be exchanged in the future. To put it in a very Machiavellianistic way, of course it is not going to be a tit for tat, right? So it's not a currency that you can demand. It's a currency that the other person fulfills out of their own sense of wanting to do it. Because again, you can't demand that, like, hey, I listen to your story, you know, please give me $5. It doesn't work that way, right? Because we are working on influence. We are not working on power. Influence is the whole idea of you can do this, you can do this if you want to. If you don't want to do it, it's perfectly fine. The whole idea of influence is that you give the control to the other person. And then the whole idea is, because the person like you so much, likelihood the person will use that control to benefit you. That's the whole idea of influence, right? If you want to learn in terms of like how to actually demand things from other person, how to actually overpower somebody and say that, like, hey, I did this, and then like now you're gonna do this, right? You know, to demand something out from like this person, then you can say that that's power, which I can potentially teach in a future lesson. But for now, what I'm covering is just influence, right? So once you realize that you don't really need the sense of importance, and you realize that it's easier for you to just give the sense of importance to the other person, all you need to do in a conversation is to, one, realize what they're using. If they're looking for validation, you give them validation. This person is telling their cruise story. Oh, you went to a cruise story, dude, that's so awesome, man. Then what happened? Like, you know, this person telling something that happened to them in the game that they played. They're like, whoa, that's so cool, that's so impressive, right? This person shows you the watch, like, wait, wow, the watch, wow, it's such a nice watch, man, such a cool watch. Like, you know, hey, show me more about it, man. How is it? Like, you know, all the whole idea is that you're trying to get validation. You're giving them the validation, right? You're giving them the best possible feeling and the best possible scenario that they want. And number two is, no, not number two. I haven't reached number 2 yet, because this is sympathy. If they are looking for sympathy, it's just giving the sympathy like, oh no, what happened? They're like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. This is all you have to do, right? Just realize if they're looking for validation. At this point, it's as simple as that. Number 2 is get them talking. This is in line with the principle. Speak with people, I play this imaginary game in my head, right? As if I have a stopwatch in my head. Every second that this person is talking, the stopwatch is running. And the whole idea is, what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to get a high score. So comparing to like other people, where they talk to other people, it's like, I want to fight for the conversation, I want to talk more than the other person. The way that I see it, I want to talk as little as possible. The thing coming out of my mouth is going to be strategically placed in a way to keep you talking. In the example of the Rolex, they're like, dude, your Rolex is so cool, man. Like, what features does it have? Like, do you mind sharing with me the features and everything like this? Then what do you think the other person is going to do, right? You know, this person getting the sense of importance that, like, somebody think that their watch is important. Keep in mind that if he talks to another person, right, the other person will tell you, hey, dude, screw off, man, I don't want to know about your Rolex. Screw you and your Rolex. How dare you show off to me? But here I am giving everything this person wants. Like, wow, your watch is so cool. Do you mind telling me about the features? So this person just got an invitation to impress me even more, right? Yeah, this have like this thing, you know, this Rolex can cure cancer and everything like this. You know, if I'm hungry, I can melt it down, I can drink, like, all this other nonsense, right? And the whole idea is that you want to keep them talking for as long as possible. And the next video, what I'll do is that I will teach you how to actually use mirroring and sense of importance effectively in a conversation, with the end goal of getting the person to talk for as long as possible, right? So I'll go more into details of this at a later time, right? So this is generally the strategy when it comes to sense of importance, which is the whole idea. Realize that you don't really need a sense of importance to get them talking. Now, let me just switch back to the full view. So, few things that I want to end off this topic on is that by understanding sense of importance, not only do you have the practical use of it, which is to actually use it in a conversation, understanding sense of importance can also help you understand why people do certain things. And you can say that to a certain extent, when you understand why people do certain things, it is easier for you to forgive them. It comes down to one thing, that if you really want to be very charismatic, the whole idea is to not take things personally. Because a lot of times people take things personally. Using the example that I used in mirroring previously, right? Which is the person asking, I'm very curious about something. What is your deepest or your biggest or your greatest fear? And then the other person maybe say that like, oh, my biggest fear is I'm afraid of heights. You can say that in that example, right? Hypothetically, probably at some point, and it's not uncommon for this to happen, the other person answers to your fear, such as you say that, oh, my biggest fear is I'm afraid of heights. And the other person will go there like, heights? Really? You're afraid of heights? It's just heights only, right? Like, I don't get why people is afraid of heights. It's simple. Like, there's so many other things that people can be afraid of. Like, if you were to say that afraid of needles, I can understand why people are afraid of needles. But like, really, you're afraid of heights? When somebody belittles our emotion like that, to a certain you can say that like it's very hurtful, and what likely is going to happen is that you're going to end up resenting the other person. But if you were to take a step back and actually realize the reason why this person is actually opening their mouth and talk about how not important heights is because of one thing, right? Did this person talk for longer than 5 seconds? Yes. This person is looking for sense of importance. In that example, what sense of importance are they looking for? They're looking for validation, right? The best case scenario that they want is that they were to think that they're trying to impress you by saying that like, I'm not afraid of heights. Of course, the conversation is not going to go that way. Most of the time in the conversation, right, it's going to be a confrontation. There's like, hey, dude, you asked me about what's my deepest fear. Then I told you about my deepest fear. Right? So like, what's the problem with you? So most of the time it leads to a confrontation, right? It's assuming that the person who is being asked about their fear, the person who's afraid of heights, has a certain level of assertiveness. If let's say the person is not assertive, then probably the person will quiet down and cut off the conversation with like, right? But in the head of the person who said that like, hey, it's only heights only, like, what's the big deal? This person in their head thought the best case scenario, and they might not even consciously know that this is what they're looking for. In their head, the best case scenario is that the other person who is afraid of heights will go there like, whoa, dude, really? Wow, you're so impressive, man. Wow, you're not afraid of heights. I can't believe that. Like, for me as somebody who is afraid of heights, to know of somebody who's not afraid of heights, it's such a special thing, because when I get up to high altitude, right, everything freezes, my hand freezes. It's like I can't operate at all. But here you are, completely unfazed with heights. Why is it like, why are you so impressive? And can you tell me more about like, what is the thing that you probably did when you're younger that makes you not afraid of heights? And then like this person can probably share about like something in the past, and like, yeah, when I was younger, I used to climb all over the place. I used to climb trees, and I used to do this. This is what the other person thought the conversation is going to go. Right? So, of course, the conversation most of the time don't go this way, because, again, this person have just trampled on our insecurities. If there's one principle that you want to know about how to not be charismatic, is that you cannot trample on people's insecurities. That's the fastest way to get you hated. But, of course, like, this person don't really realize that, right? Because most people really don't think about emotions, about all these things as in-depth, as robotic as the way that I'm sharing all these things. But the whole idea is that once you realize that the most of the time people do things because, again, sense of importance, we can understand why people do certain things, and we can stop taking things so personally. And it can help, because like in that situation you can say that by tempering my anger, but in that sense, if I understand this person is looking for validation, there's actually no anger, right? There's no like, how dare this person actually trample on my sense of my insecurities. The idea is just that give this person what they want, and what I'll actually end up in the conversation is that I'll give this person the best conversation in the world. And the idea of you working on the principle of sense of importance, and once you couple this together with mirroring, the reason why this framework works is because you are giving somebody the level and degree of conversation that it's very rare for them to find. Because most of the time when they talk to other people, the other person is trying to fight for a sense of importance with them. It gets very, very tiring. But here you are, willingly listening to all their stories. How much and how rare is it to find somebody like this, and how much of emotional satisfaction you'll get when you talk to somebody like this. And because of the emotional satisfaction, how much will they be willing to actually sacrifice to keep you? And this is the reason why the whole idea, like, how these two things come together, right? This basically is the secret of charisma, how to get people to like you. And of course, the whole idea is that once you start applying mirroring and sense of importance effectively in a conversation, you are going to get people to like you naturally. You'll use this no matter what. I use this regardless of who I talk to. I talk to a colleague, I'll use this. I meet somebody for the first time, I'll use this. I talk to a client, I'll use this. And if I will talk to like even somebody that I feel like I romantically want to get involved with, I will use this principle. It's as simple as like one solution fits all. More that you utilize this, then you'll realize that okay, sometimes you need to fix this here and there. It's similar, right? It's like learning martial art. I can teach the basic punches, but you must always understand that okay, if you punch this way, somebody will be able to counter it with another way. Then by learning more about martial arts, okay, how do I counter that counter? So it's how to actually fix different circumstances, which I will be sharing more in the long term, right? When it comes to sharing things such as body language and everything like this. But in any case, this is where I'm going to end off today's lesson. Again, if there's any confusion, there's any part that you don't understand, feel free to let me know, then I'll address this. And again, just like the first video, if I remember something like, oh no, I need to like say that thing, because I forgot to say it in the video, then I'll probably put it down in the comments. Alright, take care. I'll see you in the next one where I'll be talking more about how to actually use both of these together in a conversation. Alright.